Hey there, I'm going to be talking about some of the latest updates that Atomic Mass Games has shown off recently for their updated character cards. And while this will mostly revolve around the Evil Space Council, I will also be talking about some of the Criminal Syndicate changes as well as the Infinity Gems. My name is Nate, and welcome to the Gamers Guild. Alright, so these changes were some of the ones that I have been anticipating the most, because with the changes to the Black Order also come the changes to a couple of the gems themselves, which is exciting because it isn't just the Black Order who can make use of those gems. But before I get into that, I want to mention the guild sponsor, TRex Games. They have some great prices for Marvel Crisis Protocol products already, as their pre-order prices take 20% off of retail. And then you can use the code TRITEXGGCP5 at checkout for an additional 5% off, for a grand total of 25%, which is fantastic. So if you're going to be placing an online order anyways, consider doing it through TRITEX. But if you're supporting an LGS, no hurt feelings, we understand. TRITEX is an LGS themselves. But if you're still wanting to help the channel, a like and subscribe are always appreciated. All you need to do to enter in the future is be subscribed to the channel and comment on a video of the current month. And I guess before I dive into the Black Order changes, I'm going to talk about the Criminal Syndicate changes before they get swept under the rug, because outside of one change, there isn't really anything new that is worth talking about anyways. Kingpin's Hail to the King attack is getting a size restriction of 3, where it was previously unlimited, which is in line with some of the other changes we have seen with characters getting their throw and push abilities changed. Green Goblin, you may have already seen in action tearing apart my Midnight Suns with his changes. And MODOK was one of the earlier reveals, so you can find his changes pretty easily both in my previous videos as well as just elsewhere on the internet. However, the last gem that Atomic Mass Games had hidden amongst the Criminal Syndicate changes was to Bullseye, who I think is the only character to see all of his numbers drop and still come out really far ahead of where he was. The notable changes are that his stamina has dropped to 4 on both his healthy and injured sides, his Mystic Defense dropped down to 2, but most importantly, his threat value dropped down to 2 as well. And honestly, without a Hulk-sized rework, I think this was the right change for Bullseye, who can definitely fit more in line with what he was already capable of at 2 threat. However, the bigger picture around what this means is where I think this change really begins to make some waves. And that is with the affiliated list building. Bullseye is now a second 2-threat character in the affiliation of the Cabal, and the first for the Criminal Syndicate. And really, in the eyes of most Cabal players, he is the first 2-threat affiliated character, because Bob is more of a gimmick piece, whereas Bullseye can be a more reliable chip damage dealer who can also just hold a back objective without too many concerns. Now, sure, you could bring both and just start to go as wide as the Guardians in the Cabal if you wanted to, but just having a more reliable 2-threat is great for Sin and Red Skull alike. But where things can really become interesting is for the future of the Criminal Syndicate and Kingpin, where the leadership really wants your team to go wide to take full advantage of having healthy bodies count as 2 for securing objectives. Having access to an in-affiliation 2-threat character is really going to open up some doors for their list building. Now, to be honest, I haven't messed around with Kingpin and the crew that much to know how much this is going to change up roster construction, but I can only assume it's going to bring evil and profitable interactions for Mr. Fisk. So enough about these street-level thugs, let's talk about the Black Order. The first notable thing here is that Thanos and Black Dwarf are seeing no direct changes, but there are other things changing that do affect them quite mightily. For example, Black Dwarf is having all of the other things that can push him and throw him and stuff. The overall just amount of control that can control him is going down significantly, as well as some things that are going to help him speed up. But first up is the husband and wife duo of Corvus and Proxima. Corvus's Death Blow now has a harder time of triggering the Flurry because it now needs a wild and a block instead of just a wild, which I am fine with, but I do wish that they kept all of the needed results for flurries the same across the board, because now his doesn't line up with Valkyrie's or Medusa's flurry triggers, even though they all have the similar requirements of needing 2 die faces that only show up once on the dice each. But that is kind of just bookkeeping, kind of a nitpick. The bigger deal on these 2 cards is that their respective husband and wife reactive abilities that previously allowed them to activate back-to-back has been restricted in a couple of ways. First, they now each cost 1 power to activate, so you'll have to be a little bit smart about how much power you are spending if you're wanting those back-to-back activations that they are known for and so devastating. Additionally, they now have to be within range 3 of each other instead of range 4. This part isn't a huge deal as it's only the difference of a couple of inches, but it does mean that if you make efforts to separate the 2 characters with control abilities like pushes and throws, it could throw off the Black Order's game plan a little bit more. And those were the only changes that these 2 saw. And honestly, I'm pretty happy with the end result. Corvus and Proxima are still the power couple of the Black Order, there's no doubt about that. But they aren't really seen much outside of their home affiliation. So limiting their back-to-back activation by making it cost a power and restricting the range I think keeps them in line with some of the other balances we've seen up to this point. And Corvus getting the additional results needed on his flurry like we have seen on the other characters just kind of makes sense, and I even expect and hope that that trend follows for the rest of the characters. So there wasn't any drastic measures taken, just a small tap down for these 2, but nothing that really hits what they do, and I'm a fan of that because Black Order were and are now able to maintain a strong personality as an affiliation. So now let's talk about the Black Order's other 5-threat character, Ebony Maw. And I want to talk about some of the reasons Maw hasn't really seen the table very much as a whole since his release. And the first reason isn't even anything wrong with Ebony Maw, oddly enough. It is just about how good of a piece Corvus is with the reality gem for 5-threat, and then how well Corvus and Proxima synergize both together and with Thanos, whose leadership and game plan is all about attrition. Maw doesn't really tick those same boxes. Instead, we have a split of a control and damage dealing 5-threat piece who still wasn't as damage dealing or controlling as MODOK, who also offered more on the durability levels than what Maw had. Despite Maw getting 3 power a turn naturally, he is a character who was always split on having to use it for offense or save it for defense, because 2 physical and 2 energy defense with 11 total stamina isn't a good place to be. He could at least raise it from 2 to 6 for 2 power, but that isn't going to leave him much power for the offensive side, with his builder only being a 5 dice builder that nets only 1 power, with no consistency to help get the wild needed for his control element. So, in summary, Maw was either made of glass where he could hit hard for a turn, maybe 2 if you got to activate him on his injured side, which didn't happen often considering his low 4 stamina, with low defenses to the most common attack types. Or he was able to be somewhat survivable depending on your dice, and then he could throw out 2 5-dice attacks. Either way, not anything particularly impressive for a 5-threat character. Thankfully, Maw did get some Hulk level changes. First, his energy defense has gone from 2 to 4, his builder has gone from 5 to 6 dice, which is a much needed improvement to help bring him into the league of mystic damage dealers like Wanda and MODOK, since he doesn't have a lot of control elements that are guaranteed now other than his builder. Unfortunately, it still only nets him 1 power, but that doesn't hurt as much because Mind Over Matter got a total overhaul, and it now works a lot like Enchantress's and Mysterio's innate defensive abilities. Maw will now get to use his Mystic Defense for attacks unless an enemy character spends 2 power when targeting Maw for the attack to make him use the correct defense type for that attack. So this both increases Maw's durability in the early game significantly, but it also means he can now bank his power for his offensive things like his throw, his nasty spender, or maybe still defensively for his new superpower in telekinetic deflection, which will let him ignore collisions for 2 power. As well, he did get a couple of extra stamina points on his injured side, going up to 6. So now you have to put in at least some work to finish him off once he is flipped over, instead of just giving him a hard look. All in all here, I think AMG have seen all of the issues that I listed before and made an effort to balance those issues out. His defensive ability is now a power drain on your opponent rather than yourself. His builder got some much needed love, even if I would still have liked to see it gain power equal to damage dealt instead of a guaranteed 1. And his extra base energy defense, stamina increase, and brace for impact superpower are also really nice additions to keep him alive and actives. So while he won't ever probably be swimming in power constantly, he will have enough to do what he wants to and be a threat. And all in all, his character has improved a lot. But is it enough? And here comes a really awkward yes and no. He now plays like a different flavor of Scarlet Witch, in that they are both primarily mystic damage dealers. He has some control and defense elements to her dice consistency and status effects, and they both suffer from getting moved around since they don't have any built-in mobility. So in that regard, I think he is a pretty well-balanced 5-threat now. But his only affiliated home is with the Black Order, where Reality Corvus is still affiliated. And Corvus Glaive happens to probably be the most consistent damage dealer of the 5-threat characters we have in the game so far. And between the synergies of having Proxima easily round out the needed 3 characters for the affiliation, he is a hard character to dethrone from the Black Order's 5-threat slot, even with his own character's balances. Now, I do think there is some cute and cool play of bringing maybe a Thanos-less Black Order in to free up some threat in a lower point matchup, and Maw can now certainly hold his own better as long as he isn't facing down a lot of physical attacks. I'm still not comfortable putting a gem on him with the upcoming rules changes because a 6-threat character with 13 stamina and 2 physical defense just doesn't seem like a good point investment, and it might even overcommit to his power usage. But then again, Doom Prophecy Online turn 1 and every single turn for the rest of the game seems kind of gross and fun. So finally, I want to talk about the changes to the Infinity Gems. Only 2 of them have changed, and that feels about right to me. First is the Space Gem, which only had the threat reduced by 1, making it more in line with its Mind Gem counterpart. This is a great change because at the cost of 2 threat, it was hard to even consider for Thanos, who could still use that ability for free. I'm guessing that AMG had overvalued, and maybe even still looking at Scott's Field Leader ability, the ability to reposition your allied characters outside of their activations. Now it becomes an interesting look for Thanos, as well as a competition over the Mind Gem for a character like Loki. And of course, it opens up some interesting turn 1 plays and shenanigans. But that's probably okay because the other gem that is getting changed is the Time Gem, and it has received a complete overhaul. First of all, its threat has also been dropped by 1, and instead of granting an extra action, it costs 2 for reactive ability that says, when this character is attacking, before the calculate successes or failure step, at the end of the modify dice step of the attack, it may use this superpower. The attacking and defending characters reroll all of their attack and defense dice, including failure results. So it gets to act like a repeatable recalibration matrix on offense only for the character wielding it. I don't think that Doctor Strange will want this because he already has a built-in one of these rerolls, but hey, maybe sometimes you need 3 full dice rolls to get what you need. Corvus would rather have the Reality Gem, which leaves Thanos, and I don't think it's a bad choice for him because he doesn't have much going on offense for himself for a 6 to 8 threat character, so some free consistency in the form of a gem isn't an awful look for him, especially if Corvus already has the Reality Gem, which he should. But all in all, the Time Gem is able to stay thematic and not be crazy, enabling some just absolute broken turn 1 plays. I wish that it was usable on defense as well as a once per turn ability, but maybe that would have been too crazy for an already tanky Thanos. As I close today, I want to say thanks to all the members of the Guildhall who are supporting what I'm doing with the channel. Your support really is just amazing and continues to encourage me so much, and if it weren't for you all, I wouldn't be able to do everything that I have up to this point. If you are interested in supporting the channel, check out the links down in the description for the Guild's Patreon page, as well as a link to TRex Games page where you can use that discount code to let them know I sent you their way. As always, thank you all for watching, and until next time. fun gaming.